you got? At least running, jumping, all that good stuff. I mean, of course, you don't learn anything all that much about who they are as football players during that, but you do get a glimpse for the first time. Some of these guys you've been anxious to see. We're all really excited. I could not have mentioned it, you know, any more than I already have for spring football. One of the most anticipated spring football campaigns in a long, long time. And in some ways, I feel like it starts tomorrow with the tour of duty. And then Friday, we have the luncheon where we get to talk to the coaches. Mike Norvell will address the assembled press. And, I think that will be greatly anticipated too, because this is on the heels of that 10-win season. And it is really the first of the addresses that he'll make that centers around this upcoming year and not this past year. That is now more towards what we think of them as a top 15, top 10 team, probably preseason ranked, the kind of campaign they're hoping to have and the anticipation of both the fans, but also you already saw with the way too early top 25 picks that you get a barrage of from the various websites that cover college football upon the conclusion of the bowl season, upon the conclusion of college football's playoff. Florida State was as well thought of as almost anybody, top 3, top 4 in a couple of those polls, top 15 in every one of them. So I guess in some ways you could say this is where it begins. This is the beginning of this season. You want to look at it this way. We're done with last season. It is the beginning of this season.
Well, it's time to get with the getting in terms of how we assess success and failure. It's no longer about the COVID restrictions in recruiting. It's no longer about the mess that was inherited due to the fact that 2 head coaches ago, it crashed and burned. And then 1 head coach ago, it was a gasoline truck that just ignited everything all the more. We don't have to do that anymore. It's kind of like when we talk about baseball, and I'm so happy that we can move on from the family last name of the head coach discussion, and we can go forth, and assess Link Jarrett as a normal
Yeah.
and independent entity and storyline. Same thing now for Florida State football. You get your 10 wins. Awesome. You didn't get the wins over the ranked teams that you would have liked, but that's okay. There's room for growth. The expectations are there. The retention is there. Now it's sink or swim. And let's assess this the way that we used to assess Florida State football seasons. Do you win enough games? That's going to be a lot of fun.
Speaking of baseball, tonight against USF, Dick Howser Stadium, Mike Martin Field, 5 p.m. You've got a baseball game. That is right. Baseball game. Then you got 3 more of them this weekend. Florida Gulf Coast comes to town on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th. We're in March. Welcome, everybody, to March. It's a glorious time. This is where we get the great opportunity to spring forward and have extended daylight, and it feels a little bit like everybody's froggy, ready to be out of the house, ready to go. You get opportunities because this is a baseball team that's fun to watch, and they're playing a lot of home games all in a row from tonight all the way through the 12th. So the beginning of this month through up to the middle of this month, it's all home games for Florida State, followed by a real brief, trek over to Orlando and right back to Dick Howser Stadium for a slate of games against BC. And then Florida, this whole month is home game central for Florida State in baseball. So if you want to get out to the ballpark to see this team and you want to be a part of what's going on there, and you've just thought, hey, when will I get the opportunities? Well, you got like 20 of them between today and the 20th of this month.
Well, that's why last weekend's 2 out of 3 was critical, because now there's a whole bunch of home games. And look, some of these teams might be surprises by the end of the year, but this was considered to be the meat of the schedule where you rack up the wins right now. But if you could start that whole process with taking 2 out of 3 from TCU, then you're going to put yourself in position where if you do what you're supposed to, there's going to be a lot more wins than losses on our record by the time we host Florida on the 21st of March. And that means that we could climb up into the rankings in the top 10, top 8, somewhere in there. And you're setting the tone for being able to host a regional or maybe have a top 8 national seed. If you do enough in the back half of the schedule, which is absolutely brutal, it is replete with top 25 ball clubs. There's 8 of them in the ACC. We play most of them for a weekend series this year.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Swiss Irish, Donkey Shane. Now, before I circle back to Florida State football, should make note that the regular season finished up this past weekend. The ACC handed out their annual awards for women's basketball yesterday. We certainly want to acknowledge Taniya Latson, who has been unreal, named Rookie of the Year. Michaela Timpson was named, she's a sophomore, by the way, most improved player. But back to Taniya, named to the All-ACC first team, third place for Player of the Year. And if you look at her place nationally with the numbers, top 7 in every meaningful offensive category, you really realize what a special talent a true freshman is for Florida State. And the Noles finished the regular season, just so you know, 23-8, 12-6 in the ACC. They're the 5th seed in this week's ACC tournament in Greensboro. That actually begins this afternoon with the lower seeded teams. That would not be FSU in action. The Noles will open tomorrow, second round games at 11 a.m. when they take on the winner of this afternoon's game between Wake Forest and Virginia.
I look forward to a day in which we get sick of hearing the name Birmingham for a host site of something, not Greensboro. You know, you're talking about, yeah, here we are on a Wednesday. The games have already started in Greensboro Coliseum.
Mm-hmm.
God bless. I mean, you know, with what's happened the last week, and we get excited about how FSU is trying to advance the discussion and advance our place. Just the first time hearing Greensboro after that, I think, yeah, we're right. Board of Trustees, Director Alford, you're right.
It's time to go.
It's Greensboro. My God.
The reverberations of that still being felt, that conversation, the impetus for conversation that was caused by that very public account of Florida State's displeasure and obvious desperation. I think certainly you could hear a man who is laying bare to everybody who needed to hear, this isn't going to work. We don't intend to sit here quietly and wait for something to play out in our favor. We are going to be proactive. And by doing that, it got people talking throughout the rest of this conference, but it got people talking throughout the SEC. It got people talking again in the Big Ten. And they were already chatty because they're looking very closely at what's going on with the Pac-12. And that's a negotiation that's supposed to be wrapped up as early as this week, if not certainly by the end of next week. And if the Pac-12 isn't where they need to be, and it doesn't look real good right now.
$50.
Yeah, that's right. We're going to give you $50 cash. That's kind of the problem they have right now. Which means what? We speak of reverberations. Well, if you're Washington, you're a brand that kind of matters. If you're Oregon, you certainly are. And you're going, I don't think we want to be here. I think we may need to go. We may need to take that offer that's coming from the Big Ten here any second. And so everybody's restless, and you further elevate tension. It's fine. I don't mean that in a bad way. Sometimes you want to de-escalate. Sometimes you want to escalate. Here, it looks like we wanted to escalate. In this situation, I think, you got a lot of people kind of looking around the room like, you with me? What are we going to do here? What's going to happen? And everybody's trying to get situated now. And I like that it hasn't died down. We're going to talk about it tonight on Warchant TV, 7 o'clock. You can tune in. I look forward to it. I did mention that David Hale's going to join us. I think we have another guest. Is that right?
Yeah, Matt Connolly from On3 Clemson. Yes.
Yeah, Clemson. So we'll have a Clemson beat reporter joining us as well and have him in and to talk about it from their standpoint. Ira and Gene Williams, Ira Chaffel, Gene Williams, going to be on board with me. I'll host, and we'll have a good conversation with those gentlemen about this situation. That's tonight at 7 o'clock. And again, it's not going to die down. You can only imagine after we said what we did earlier this week, and of course on the heels of those comments, if you got people on the inside, you got sources, or you got people in close proximity to those in charge, you're going to hear back from those people about intent, what was said, what wasn't said, clarification on certain issues, all those things. It's been a busy week.
This is a high-stakes game, and we all know that because Florida State is trying to get itself into a position where it can operate at least relatively on equal footing with some of the other power players in the country. We don't have that in terms of an alumni base. They're always a generation ahead. So when it comes to endowments and such, we're not going to be toe-to-toe. But if your TV disbursement is toe-to-toe, then watch out. Watch out what we can do. The fun part here, and what I think everybody involved knows when it comes to the board of trustees, the athletic department in general, this is a legacy maker or breaker. You have now gone all in on this conversation about getting us out of the ACC and getting us to one of the Power Two. If you do it, your legacy is secure. No matter what else happens, you were the member of, and insert athletic department or board member, you are the person who got us where we needed to go and got us off the sinking ship. If it doesn't work out that way, and 5 years from now we pay a settlement check that's upwards of $500-600 million to get out of the ACC, then this was, not so hot. It was a moment where we barked, but we couldn't bite.
One of the things I've noticed, how about that, is that when folks that are not connected to Florida State or aren't connected to Clemson, and there is speculation that those two schools are partnered in this endeavor, and I think most assuredly they are, if not stated publicly, certainly behind the scenes. I don't think Florida State goes it alone, is my point. I don't think Michael Alford comes out with these statements if he doesn't have an alliance with some other teams in this league, at least one, in the form of Clemson. I think he probably has some other connections within this conference that feels very similarly. But one of the things that I've noticed is that when it's assessed by other media members from afar who don't have connections, and that's fine. That's you want that. You want people away from it who aren't as close sometimes to comment on it as well. I think one of the things that is missed out on, because this is where a pride or a connection would kick in, and it would make you keenly aware of some very important numbers, as opposed to just in passing, you've read them before and they didn't necessarily stick with you indelibly, is they tend to say things like, well, what's Florida State going to do? What's Clemson going to do? They're bent over a barrel. The ACC is under no pressure to move to appease these two universities who are expressing their displeasure. Well, look, man, that ignores the fact that Florida State is one of the most significant brands in all of college football, period. It's not up for debate. It's a fact. Florida State is a true asset to whoever it is that they play, whose banner they play under, whether that's the SEC, the Big Ten in this conversation. Certainly they're an asset to the ACC, the biggest asset to the ACC, although not treated as such or recognized as such. That you can't, in the world in which eyes to sets matters more than geography, and the ability to negotiate huge sums of money with television contracts, not just the ones that are happening now, but the ones that will happen in 3 and 4 years, or 5 to 7 years, or 10 years. Florida State does have leverage in that regard because they're letting the world know they're available. They'd like you to know that, hey, I know we dated so-and-so for a very long time, but that is fractured and it is over. We're still somewhat tacitly, aligned, but we'd be happy to listen. You want to go out to dinner? Let's have a conversation. They're putting that out there because they want the SEC and they want the Big Ten and they want ESPN and all the other power players to have a conversation about what do we do with Florida State, because they matter. They're not going to have the conversation, what do we do with Wake Forest? Excuse me, Bob, you called me to ask what we're going to do with Wake Forest? Nothing. Have a good day. I'm busy. Click. That's how this works. But when you call and ask about Clemson, what are we going to do with Clemson? Well, if you're the SEC, you say, we don't have to have them, and that's true. But do we want the Big Ten to get them? Probably not. What about Florida State? Right. We don't have to have them, but do we want the Big Ten to make a play at them? So you're trying to get the conversation started, and you're furthering the conversation. You're expediting this.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't think the Big Ten can instigate a process by which ESPN feels pressure. I think the only way the Big Ten can get involved is if the ACC finds the votes to just disband.
Well, and that also might be something they're doing.
That has to be the first play because, again, the grant of rights, I'm more concerned about the grant of rights from ESPN's perspective, not the ACC's perspective. And it's a lot easier for ESPN to move us from one banner, as you put it, to another banner.
Yeah.
Because they own the rights anyway. This is what the ESPN pays the ACC for the rights. So I care more about what they think than screw the ACC. What does the 4-letter network think? Because we're tied to them. Now, if we were a free agent, I wouldn't give a damn what ESPN thinks. Highest bidder. To the highest bidder we go. But I don't know that we can skip a step there and have the Big Ten offer, let's just say, Clemson and Florida State a place. I don't think you can go that far. That's where I think the grant of rights kicks back in and it becomes a big hurdle. Now, if you can find the votes to call it a day as a conference, and maybe that's what they're trying to court right now. I mean, if you think about it, Miami's athletic director used to be Clemson's athletic director. So you would think that the philosophy falls in line with Florida State and Clemson. Boom, that's 3. North Carolina, I would think, would be 4. From there, Virginia might be aligned with the Big Ten in terms of their
Academics, where they
presentation.
are, yeah.
Yes. Reputation also offers a little bit more of a market to that part of the country for the Big Ten. 5. Louisville was actually, I think, number 3 on the list that Alford presented. So that might work for the Big 12.
Oh, sure.
6.
Sure.
You're getting closer. But I think the only way that we go to the big is if we said no mas to the ACC and we had the votes to do that first. That's just open speculation, but I don't know if you can skip a step and automatically go to Fox when you have an ACC/ESPN grant of rights.
Yeah, I don't. And by the way, I don't believe Florida State ends up in the Big Ten either. I mean, long term, I don't think that's how this goes. It's easy to come up with. It's pretty easy to come up with 7 to 8 teams to join Florida State, and in terms of everybody trying to find a home, if they believe dissolvement is inevitable. It's one thing where you're having the conversation suggesting that, well, what are you going to do? Well, if you're trying to rattle the cages and let people know that you intend to leave and that your alignment with Clemson means 2 of you are intending to leave, and football drives the bus at 80% of the revenue, and those are the 2 preeminent forces for television markets in this conference, and those 2 are as good as gone, and they're already making noise about it in 2023 publicly. You might say to yourself, if you're one of those other teams, well, we're in no hurry. I mean, they're not able to leave here because of grant of rights to 2036. But you would also be sticking your head in the sand to think that anybody's going to sit around and wait till 2036. They're not. They're going to make this. I mean, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. They're going to make this exceedingly difficult. They're only just beginning to do that. This is a group that's going to be hard at work to try to muck things up, okay, and make this as uncomfortable as possible for everybody. And so it's at that point that I would say it might serve your best interest to get out in front of it. That this conference, it's going to go the way of the dodo. Our conversation before, they're dead and they don't even know it, is what you said. That's absolutely right. They're dead and they don't even know it. But I think they do. It's everybody trying to position themselves. And what are their timelines for that? Might be different than ours. Might be different than that. They don't feel the same pressing need that we do just now because they know they're not going to be picked up by one of these super conferences.
Correct. There's a couple of things at play here. Number one, it's open speculation according to third-party sources from somewhere different in the country. But I see this conversation that Oregon and Washington might be able to join the Big Ten for a reduced payout. Don't like that. Don't like setting that precedent when we're looking for a home, because I don't want to join a Power 2 based upon the precedent of them going and plucking somebody from a different corner of the country and saying, you get 80% of what everybody else gets. I don't want to be that team. It'll be more than we get now, but let's not go down that road.
Don't want that either, yeah.
The thing I'd say is, could you find 8 institutions currently in the ACC, if 8 is the number to get the votes, and I think we're all assuming that that's the magic number, is the majority?
It is, yeah, no, that's...
Okay, so you need 8 votes. Can you find 8 institutions that are going to make more money next year in a different conference than they would today? I think you could.
Miami, Louisville, North Carolina, Virginia, Florida State, Clemson.
6.
We need 2 more?
Mm-hmm.
All right, NC State and Virginia Tech. We're done.
Yeah, I think that would be a natural fit for what's left of the Big 12.
Correct.
To patch it.
Hell, throw in Pitt for that matter.
Well, patchwork with Pitt, West Virginia. You can restore that rivalry.
Correct.
But those institutions would all, in theory, make more money from the Big 12, newly construed as it is, than they would at present day from the ACC.
Yes, they would. Their contract is already more per team than what the ACC has.
If that's the case, then perhaps you're closer than not to getting enough people to say, you know what, it's a better deal for me. I might as well do this. This place is going bye-bye anyway. Could be.
Well, the fun of this, listen, if Florida State has already, and we've had a lot of fun with this in the past, and I love this. If you look at where we end up, say the SEC East, and we talk about the path to championships becoming much more difficult because of an exceedingly difficult league that has real depth to it, that's fine. But Florida State has won with less forever. Now you're going to give us the same as everybody else that is playing big boy football. And given where we are geographically, I feel real good that we'll win our fair share of championships if operating at peak efficiency. I'm certainly not overly concerned that we wouldn't be able to compete in that, let's say, the SEC East. Florida State would be right there with, and they have been, even without those funds and even without some of that cachet. They would be able to compete in the not too distant future with the Georgia. They already are better than Florida. And so you would go from there and then Tennessee. Yes,
Right.
I get it. Right. But that's great. Now, everywhere you look, there is an impassioned fan base with great facilities and longstanding traditions and investments to play football at the highest level. Great. We're all on the same footing then. And we're all taking in the same amount of money from the television contract. So we're all able to play big boy football, and our university's already committed to that. So we're good to go.
Well, and there's another layer of anxiety about this for people like you and me who are citizens of the city of Tallahassee. What is better for this market, this city that we live in, than being in the SEC? When you talk about what you can do with rival fan bases or non-rival fan bases that just happen to be in your division. They travel like crazy. They're nuts. Good. You think the hotel minimums are expensive now? Wait until we get into the SEC. Those things are going to go up. And you think about all the money that's brought into the restaurants, the fact that Doak will be able to raise ticket prices because there's going to be demand from the other side, not Boston College bringing down 14 people. You're going to have a Mississippi State and an Ole Miss still bringing in people, and everywhere in between there and here. Auburn, Alabama, LSU. I mean, they're all going to come here in droves. It just makes everything better from a local citizen standpoint as well. The city of Tallahassee would love it if it was SEC over Big Ten, and I don't think it's remotely close. You get a couple of big fan bases to come down here as it cools off for them in Ohio State and Penn State and Michigan. But is Indiana making that trip? No. A lot of others.
Well, I don't need Indiana to make that trip. They can suck.
No, but I'm
They're
saying
useless ass.
the equivalent of Indiana in the SEC is making that trip.
Yeah, no, that is true. I don't maybe feel as passionately about the SEC in terms of us ending up there for certain as some others do. I think it's a natural fit, quite obviously. We're in the footprint. It makes the most amount of sense. And you're right, the matchups on a weekly basis would be simply fantastic for the most part. I wouldn't cry myself to sleep if we ended up in the Big Ten. I mean, the idea of playing, whether it be in Iowa or in Nebraska or in Ohio State, a Michigan State. I mean, there are plenty of programs that I'd be like, this is an awful lot of fun for us to do.
Right. USC, UCLA.
I mean, goodness gracious. And if they keep adding, we could have a coast-to-coast situation on our hands here with a little Washington, Oregon for that ass, and I'd be all right with all of that. I guess the overriding point is, as long as it's not here, as long as it's not the ACC, because this conference ain't going to make it, and we can't compete to win anything if what we're projected to make compared to what they're projected to make in the SEC and the Big Ten is our future in the next 2 to 3 years. It is over.
Something quickly to ponder on. I know we've gone long here, but with these remarks being made publicly, and I don't think they're the last of their kind from Florida State's side of things, how do you feel about the officiating we're going to get this fall in the ACC?
Yeah,
it
already
brought
that up yesterday. I thought, could it get worse? I mean, could it get any worse?
Well,
perhaps
they could be incompetent and malicious at the same time. That's one hell of a deadly combo.
Yeah.
What do you say? A ninth holding, huh? Ninth holding call. No, it's amazing.
Yeah, I can't imagine we're going to be cut any breaks. But we never were. And I'm not conspiratorial.
I think that guy from Boston College a couple of years ago was just straight up stone cold stunner one of our players.
Oh, man. You have to make it so that it's overwhelmingly so. Throughout the 90s, Florida State was so much better than every team they faced in this conference that it didn't matter that the penalty disparity was 15-2, 17-4. You're like, we won 58-3 instead of 77-3 today. We all know what this should have been. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
There's nothing like relaxing in a hot tub after a long day. But if you don't have one, you're truly missing out. Hot tubs and spas have tremendous health benefits, besides just helping you relax. Like improving your sleep, they help with pain relief. They help to better your cardiovascular health, and so much more. And this season is the perfect season to finally buy what you've been wishing for. Pinch a Penny Pool, Patio, and Spas has the hot tubs you need for the price you want. Come shop our huge 12,000 square foot showroom and save today. There's over 50 hot tubs in stock right now, so you won't have to wait weeks on end for that delivery to finally come to town. If you're ready to relax, we're here to show you how. Pinch a penny pool, patios, and spas. Come visit our huge showroom at 2473 Greer Road with over 50 hot tubs to choose from. You'll be glad you did.
When you need a plumber quick, how long is an acceptable time to have to wait?
Yeah, hey, it's the Millers again. Just calling you about our little plumbing problem.
2 hours?
Hey, we were hoping you can get here soon because the water is getting really bad. I mean, please hurry.
4 hours?
I know you said you were on your way, but, honey, tell the kids to tread water.
8 hours?
Don't worry about us. We're fine.
At M&L Plumbing, you'll never have to wait long for quality, dependable service right when you need it. At M&L Plumbing, we listen to our customers, and our qualified technicians aim to achieve 100% customer satisfaction. So the next time you need plumbing work or repairs, think of the name M&L Plumbing, your local plumbing experts, commercial or residential. Give us a call, 850-575-9393, or visit us online at mandlplumbing.com. M&L Plumbing, for all of your plumbing needs.
Trucking accident? Call Basic Brooks Law Offices, 777-7777.
Tallahassee's 30-year-old funny paper and American Legion Post 13 have joined forces to become Major Morale. The new magazine has 4 more pages of post activities and military information that you probably never knew. But don't worry, it's still as politically correct and newsworthy as always. Okay, it's the same funny stuff, but it's still only available at the sponsors' locations like Tallahassee Automobile Museum, Krispy Kreme Donuts, Keith Lawson Services, or ABC Flooring. Tallahassee's leading supplier of in-stock, top-of-the-line ceramic, carpet, waterproof, and hardwood floors since 1990. At ABC Flooring, you can pick out your floor, and installation can begin in 48 hours. ABC Flooring is also the leading supplier of in-stock landlord property management products in the Panhandle. Visit their warehouse showroom on Capitol Circle Southeast or call 877-6600.
Siri, tell me a joke. The past, present, and future walk into a bar. It was tense.
All jokes aside, the trained professionals at Mac & More Systems are serious about Apple products. For all your Mac repairs, call Mac & More Systems at 894-3622. 894-3622.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness. 2 Tallahassee locations, Midtown on Thomasville Road and Northside in the Village Common Shopping Center. Online at orangetheoryfitness.com.
Least the choice of bumper there. I've got like 5 lined up, and for 4 of those days, they're with you.
That's right. It's going to be a good time.
It is.
Taking the Gulf breeze.
Look very much forward to it. We're gonna have a blast. Robert writes, in honor of spring football, how about some way too early over-unders? FSU 39 points per game. JT 3,700 passing yards. Johnny Wilson, 9.5 touchdowns. Hakeem, 15.5 receptions. Jaheim Bell, 650 total scrimmage yardage. College game day coverage, 2.5 years left in the ACC. 2.5 years left in the ACC, 3.5. That's kind of fun, man. Thanks, Robert. Well, let's go with the over on 39 points per game.
All right.
So here's the thing. It's skewed by the amount of times we're going to drop 50 plus on some of these terrible teams on the schedule.
That's how anybody gets there, though.
That is true. And so let's just say you score 27 against LSU or 31, well below 40, well below 39. Fine. What are you going to drop on, BC? What are you going to drop on some of these teams that are just
Southern Miss, Virginia Tech,
Northern Alabama,
Syracuse?
Like, you just keep going. There's going to be some big number days out there that'll help offset that. So I like the number that you put.
Miami.
I like the number you put out there. 3,700 yards. What did JT pass for this year? What was that number? I'm forgetting what the totals were there. He did a lot of focusing on the passing game this past year because he had a lot of opportunities to just sit back in the pocket. We protected him, and also that receiving core was better.
3,200.
Yeah, I'm going to go over 3,700.
Yeah, I would agree because he had a lot of second halves off, and he had one off that he didn't want against Louisville as well. So that's basically what do you think? 9 games worth of football?
Yeah, no, I think he goes over. He has more options here. The tight end room alone helps change things. You got a depth of running back, better depth on the offensive line. And you had a better offensive line last year than you did the previous year. So I think the trajectory projects above and beyond where he was last year, if I could find a way to spit out the words. And then from there, you look at Johnny Wilson, 9.5 touchdowns. Well, red zone target for sure. And then
that's a toughie.
That's a lot of touchdowns.
I think those touchdowns actually would have to come on longer plays because you're going to be so gifted.
Well, you have 3 or 4 guys to throw the ball to that are over 6'5". Yeah. I'm going to go under 9.5 touchdowns. I'm going to go over for Hakeem, 15.5 receptions.
Yeah, that's because of the blowout factor.
And then Jaheim Bell, 650 total scrimmage yards.
It's a good number.
Well, here's the problem. Unlike when he was at South Carolina, he's going to get 0 carries here. Why would you hand him the ball?
Right. Except for maybe inside goal to go. But that's not going to rack up more than 50 yards for the year?
I mean, come on. Yeah, it's. I know he's a Swiss Army knife, but you're not going to use him to run the ball in the same way that they did at South Carolina. You shouldn't. You have too many running backs to do that with, and a quarterback capable of running the ball as well. I'm going to go under 650 total scrimmage yards. There are other tight ends in this group that are also going to see the ball. Biscuit was good last year, especially in the second half of the season. He's only going to get better. And then we'll see what Morlock is. But I have a feeling he's going to play quite a bit too. And then you have some other guys that when I asked Alex Atkins about it last week, he was quick to point out. He brought up Jackson West. But I just don't. Can we trust you, Jackson? Are you going to be healthy for the first time ever?
Well, look at this.
Well, I'm about tired of it.
Tough Love Cameron meets Jackson West.
Well, I never thought I'd have to employ Tough Love Cameron to rally the troop, whip up the ponies, and get Jackson West to stay out on the damn field. Let's go. Let's go. Now's the time. You've had all this. You've had 2+ years to lift the weights, put on the weight. Let's go. Get healthy. And then there's your guy that's going to be a linebacker that you like. The other tight end. I never remember his name.
Yeah, Brian Courtney.
Yeah, I never remember.
You'll remember his name when he's a linebacker, I guess.
I guess.
Maybe.
Because he's not going to get on the field with all these tight ends. So he needs to make the switch. Let's go. Let's see it through.
Could there be real linebacker depth this year?
No.
I found it interesting with the Omar Graham comment that Adam Fuller made. If that's the case,
you think they're rooting for that? That's just what that is?
They could be rooting for it, but what if they're right? If they're right, then Blake Nicholson is another rotational piece, and that would be 4. And that's almost like a 2 deep. When you only have 2 linebackers out there on the field at once, I don't know. That math seems about right. And then there's Lundy in there somewhere.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're right where you need to be, if you have the kind of talent that we need to have to win championships, he's not part of a rotation. And that's how we start gauging these things. As you start looking at guys that do get a lot of reps, you're not dogging them personally. You're just saying if this program is operating at peak efficiency, Does a guy like that get that many reps? Not really. But we're not there, so you're right. He does belong in the rotation. He certainly does. 100 Proof Football writes, can we quit the stadium capacity reduction plans now? We are already smaller than South Carolina and are about the same as Missouri's. I don't know, man. I don't think we're going back to a time where 90,000 is realistic anymore at these stadiums. Not for most of them. It's also difficult to get here. Although it's getting better with JetBlue, buddy.
Okay, I guess incrementally.
Yeah.
Which conference would be better for Florida State and Tallahassee Airport? Probably the Big Ten.
Big Ten would be.
Big Ten.
Yeah, they would demand that we get it together, finally.
Would that push the Big Ten argument or your opinion squarely to the side of the Big Ten because it would have a better chance of improving the airport?
As much as this has been my pet cause for going on 20 years on the air here with, I've done 23 years on the air, but I've only really been hammering the airport for about 20 of those years. I would say that, no, I still would rather us end up in the SEC, okay. I think.
I agree.
It would be an ancillary benefit and a big one if, in fact, that's the way it went down, but no. Look at this. God bless the Big Ten. Our airport's so much better.
Well, when we're playing for SEC championships, I mean, we have 84 flights to Atlanta. So there you go. Pick one.
I would not. Back to the stadium situation. Remember, it was just 2 years ago where I was sitting there reading an article and brought it to everybody's attention that Alabama, and I don't know if you guys have noticed the last decade plus that Alabama's been a pretty consistently good football program, had a season, what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that they didn't sell out every game? Maybe on paper they did. But, the camera caught the empty seats. It's tough, man. Oh, I love it. I love it. You think that guy would have thought better of wearing flip-flops given his level of desperation? Like, if you're running into the stadium to get a football sign for your man cave and you're fat and old, you've got to think these things through. I'm fat. I'm old. I care deeply about a fake football getting signed by Nick Saban. I need to get more towards the front of the line because time is also precious to me. I can't wear these flip-flops. I love it. I need to take these flip-flops off, but I'm going to have to don some socks and shoes.
They've got a bottle opener on the bottom of them, and I do love that about them.
I got to don some socks and shoes here, everybody. Also, I know we got to take a break because we went long in number one, but I'm drawing the line here. I get that America's fat and lazy, but you cannot get to a place now where the main selling point for an entire brand of shoes is that you don't have to bend over to put them on. And that is what Skechers has done. They have told the world, we get it, you're fat, you're pathetic, and you're lazier than ever. But don't worry, we got you covered. You don't ever have to bend over again. Our shoes let you just slide right in with our patented heel that's flexible in a way that no other manufacturer has ever come up with. These shoes are for you, Mr. Diabetes. Just slide your foot on in there, fat ass. You'll never bend over again. Skechers. The Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Your local news now.
Tallahassee Police Department is investigating a shooting that left one person injured Tuesday morning. According to TPD, the shooting occurred around 3:20 a.m. in the 1900 block of Lake Bradford Road. One person suffered from non-life-threatening injuries. TPD says the suspect is unknown at this time. A large presence of law enforcement descended upon I-10 in Tallahassee on Tuesday night after someone called 911 to report a shooting had taken place. The caller told dispatchers that someone had been shot near mile marker 199. Deputies and troopers canvassed the shoulders of the interstate on foot, searching for potential victim. No scene or victim was found. A valuable bell that was stolen from the Tallahassee Chan Center, a local Buddhist temple, earlier this month has been returned. Staff said they couldn't say who returned the bell, but said whoever did saw the news story about it being stolen, recognized the bell, and then called the Chan Center to return it. The Tallahassee Police Department is still investigating to find out who stole the bell. This is Rachel Lene with your Real Talk 93.3 local news update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Overcast this afternoon with highs around 83. Winds out of the southwest, 8 to 15 miles per hour. Overcast skies tonight, lows level off around 66. Highs around 82 tomorrow. Cloudy skies with a few peaks of sun. Upper 70s Friday and Saturday with a chance for scattered thunderstorms Friday. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, 81.
Hey, no fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future. My man, Eddie.
Jeff, what's happening, dude?
Bears eating people all over the place. I read another article today. It's the third one in the last month of somebody getting mauled to death by a bear.
Man, bears have their own space.
Well,
you got to let them have that.
You do. You got to stay clear of bears, is what you're saying?
Yes.
I got a question for you. Here you go. If you had to be mauled to death, eaten alive by any animal in the world, which would you choose to eat you alive?
Ooh, I think maybe I'd want, I don't know, longevity time, a mouse.
Just a slow burn.
Slow burn.
Just finish the pinky. It's been a month.
I could go to work. I could still do my thing. I could probably live 30 years.
I thought you were going to say great white because it'd be quick, or a grizzly. We went with mouse.
Yeah, mouse.
Okay. Mouse it is. Gordo's bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Welcome back to the Jeff Cameron Show, sponsored by Legendary Home Loans, a mortgage experience designed around speed, simplicity, and customer service. Before you buy your next home, contact our friend Shannon Young with Legendary Home Loans. Visit FSUHomeLoans.com. FSUHomeLoans.com.
Eyes on as we start spring? And that's a hard question to answer. And that's a really cool thing to think about and to contemplate. Like, what is it I want to see? What is the group that I'm most closely paying attention to as it pertains to competition? I guess the answer has to be one of two. It's either the offensive line with the influx of players that we got in the transfer portal with the playing experience and high expectations, or it's still the secondary, Tom. It's still the secondary because we have unanswered questions at almost every position in the secondary. When you don't know who's going to be the starter at any one of those positions, other than it's a safe bet, barring a setback, that Shaheem Brown's going to play, because you had the defensive coordinator on the Jeff Cameron Show talk about how excited he is and how high the expectations are for him. I mean, it doesn't feel like any of the other jobs are locked in. I think we know the candidates to play, but we talk about divvying up the reps, and you have a corner from a year ago that's getting moved to safety. You have a corner that's being moved inside to be a nickel corner, and he's a guy that I thought was going to be maybe a lockdown corner at some point on the outside, and so it's fascinating. I just think that there are plenty of names. We know Renardo Green. We know Azaria Thomas. We know all the guys that are going to be involved, Keem Dent. But I don't think we're real sure about any one of those guys being the one who would garner the most amount of reps.
Yeah. I think you got Fentrell Cypress and Shaheem Brown as the leading rep count getters, which is really interesting considering that you have a lot of more experienced players that are going to be vying for reps themselves.
Yeah.
The offensive line is the answer to me.
Me too.
Just because you could see any number of combinations. And the thing I love about the way that they run practices, when they go head to head in the trenches, they go for period after period. And there's some combo drills that I haven't paid attention to as much in the past couple of camps and day-to-day practice, because, we'd have 5.5 starters that we liked last year, And they would be held out at times because they knew that, look, let's win the war, not win today's battle. So Dylan Gibbons didn't get a whole lot of run in those situations, or maybe they backed off Robert Scott at times. Now there's no waiting. There's no holding back. When you have, according to Alex Atkins, upwards of a dozen guys that could compete for the starting job, you can't be held out. There's no reason to. So you keep battling, you cross-train, and then the quality of work that you're going to get day to day in practice is very high because of how deep the defensive line is, especially in the interior of it. So as we're sorting out this good problem that we have on the offensive line, you're getting good tape. You're getting a good idea of what you have because the matchups are going to be high quality going back and forth. That's what a real football program's all about.
It's why when we sit here and we say the names aloud and realize that any one of them could play in any number of spots, right? So you would say something like Bless Harris or Darius Washington, Byers, Dimitri Emmanuel. I don't know. Is he going to be on the team? He might be.
Yeah,
could be. We don't know. Maurice Smith, Casey Roddick, the Jones kid that came over from Auburn.
Andre Jones.
Yeah, Armella, Robert Scott. And then I throw in all the time because I think he's got a chance to win a job. Estes. I don't know. Is Thomas Schrader finally healthy? Because if he is, he's a candidate to maybe make. That's a lot of guys.
Alex Atkins brought up Daughtry Richardson.
A lot of guys.
Early,
yeah.
Kanaya Charlton, the freshman Lucas Simmons, who is on campus for this camp, which is very important for speeding up that process. What if he's just a lockdown right tackle this early in his career? Left might be a little too much, but he's got all of the basics down that he can be a good right tackle for you. That changes the way you shuffle the other four positions. It's just this is a puzzle that constantly changes in a good way for the offensive line. So I have to imagine that even if we see, for example, 2 days in a row when they go full contact or somebody kicking ass at left guard, they might still move him because he might be better suited for right guard if one of your tackles loses out that you think is going to start, and then you shift that guy inside like a Robert Scott. It's just, I think the shuffling will continue, and that's what makes it intriguing to me. With corner and defensive back in general, I think they're going to find some roles for guys quickly, and then it's going to be set, and these are where these guys need to be. Offensive line is going to be fluid all the way into the season, I think.
We won't know, and I think it's important to reiterate this. None of this may be solved just yet because, again, Alex Atkins was quick to stress, and we also know that the messaging from the head coach is parroted and executed perfectly in lockstep with what he wants done. And that's where we've been really pleased with this staff is they're very consistent in what the goals are, what the statements are, the way they go about teaching, the way they go about molding and preparing teams and preparing players and segment groups. This is about, teaching. A lot of this is about teaching in the spring and the fundamentals of what you're doing. They may not have answers at the end of the spring. We may have opinions, and I'm sure we will, but they may not have answers because they don't have to. That's for the fall.
And that's the other thing is development and growth happens. We looked at last spring, and this is something with when I do trench reports, I'll always caution on the site side of things on warchant.com. Last year, they would run drills that are very basic for the offensive line. It's about chemistry, passing things off, dealing with twists and stunts and mixed up fronts. How are you going to handle it? It's almost like a mental challenge as much as it is a physical challenge. And they won nary a rep. I mean, every day that they went through these periods, the offensive line would win 1 out of 10 reps, and that one might be a little generous. I remember talking to a colleague of ours saying, is it designed to fail this much? Yeah. And he said, I don't think it is.
I don't think so. And it's not by design.
Right.
This is just an ass kicking.
Right.
Yeah.
By the fall, week 2 of camp, you saw the offensive line winning drills. And then
we're coming along.
For every 10, they'd win 6. And you go, oh my God, look at this. So this is just one point in time that we're measuring, and they can be better than what you see over the next, 5 weeks in spring camp.
Jeff, now that you've seen Cocaine Bear, will you go see Meth Gator? If they make it, I will. Woo! James B., I will.
Starring Ric Flair.
He's still alive.
He is.
Every now and then you need to remind yourself that Ric Flair is still living. When you think about the fragility of life and death, remember, it's not as fragile as you think. Ric Flair is amongst us. A lot of other folks. Keith Richards, still here. Still here, despite his best efforts.
Swiss Irish raises a good point. I think you have to cast Jim McElwain. If there's a gator or a shark involved, you got to cast him.
Old Jim. He should have known they would check those emails. You can't float that out there. You can't tell people that you were threatened with death via email.
Jim, why do we suck? Well, I have death threats.
Can we look at your computer? We need to take charge of a very serious situation. If people are threatening your life over wins and losses, Jim, we need to know about it. Well, I deleted it. Well, Jim, please understand. There are ways in which to retrieve deleted items, I assure you.
There are?
If you didn't know that, we have a bigger problem on our hands here, which might help explain the W's and L's. But I mean, come on. That's it. Yeah, that had to have been a bad moment. You want the computer? I do. Okay. Guys, I'm submitting my resignation. Please, can we work something out? No, I don't want to work anything out, Jim. Give me your computer. Hour number 2 forthcoming. Stay with.
Hi, this is Jamie McClenny from Trek Financial in Tallahassee. Managing downside risk in your portfolio is one of the biggest challenges that you'll face in retirement. Trillions of dollars in stimulus from the Federal Reserve and D.C. politicians, combined with zero interest rates, have propped up financial markets since the financial crisis ended in 2009. The Fed recently ended quantitative easing and has started to raise interest rates at a time when the global economy was already slowing. Have you considered what another 50% correction in the stock market would do to your retirement plan? If you're concerned about where this all might be headed and would like to find out about the potential benefits of an active risk management strategy for your portfolio, give me a call at 850-900-5200 and schedule a time for a review of your portfolio from an active risk management perspective.
Make Jamie your first call for a second opinion. Investment advisory services are offered through Trek Financial, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.
Gee, honey, I'm not gonna lie. Our front yard is looking sad. Don't you think it's time for some TLJ?
I'm pretty sure you mean TLC, and I don't have time for all that work.
No, I'm talking about some TLJ, like in the radio commercials. Give your yard some TLJ from the Lawn Johns.
For all your lawn care and landscaping needs, give your yard the TLC it deserves with some TLJ. Call the Lawn Johns today for a free quote at 322-2567 or visit thelawnjohns.com.
This is Dr. James Ryan Finn.
And Dr. Shannon Lord.
We are the dynamic duo at Finn Chiropractic, where we seek to get to the cause of your problem.
Whether you have neck pain, back pain, headaches, or any joint stiffness,
we've developed the Phenomenal Health Exam with some high-tech ways to get to the cause.
Our Phenomenal Health Exam will give the answers you need.
Get in for the Phenomenal Health Evaluation.
Visit our website at finnchiro.com, FENNCHIRO.com.
Because your chiropractor loves you.
There's nothing you can do about it.
Tallahassee's favorite family-owned Apple and Mac product store has moved to an all-new location. Mac & More Systems is now located at 230 John Knox Road. Same great people, same great services, same great prices, all at a new location. Mac & More offers computer and Apple device sales, one-on-one consulting, business services, and the most experienced Apple repair team in the city. Learn how to get the most out of your Apple gear. Come by and say hi to the Mac & More Systems team today at their new location, 230 John Knox Road.
There's fun to be had every night at the Corner Pocket. Take home prizes on Trivia Tuesdays and Beer Bingo Thursdays. And kickstart your weekend with Martini Fridays. Plus, happy hour runs every weekday and game day specials every time the Noles take the field. Watch all the best games at the Corner Pocket's Vegas wall, featuring 560 inches of flat screen TV heaven.
Oh, really?
The best food, the best drinks, and the best place to watch all the games. Tallahassee loves the Corner Pocket.
Coming up next, more of the Jeff Cameron Show. Latest betting odds and live movements from Vegas. This is your action update. Now here are your latest lines from our guys in the desert.
Orlando 11-20 on the road. Look to end the Milwaukee Bucks 15-game winning streak. They're a 9.5-point dog today at the Fiserv Forum in Milwaukee. College baseball, Florida State a $2.40 favorite at home with USF plus 195. College basketball coming up today in the ACC. Pitt can clinch a share of the regular season title with a win at Notre Dame. They're laying 4 the Fighting Irish, 142.5 the total. PGA Tour, Orlando, the Arnold Palmer Invitational. John Rahm, the plus 650 favorite. Scotty Scheffler and Rory McIlroy are both 9-1.
Sign up now for your free VSiN subscription at vsin.com/subscribe. For more sports betting news and information, go to vsin.com. Mike Son at Real Talk 93.3.
This week at Macy's, take an extra 15% off with your coupon or Macy's card. That's on top of already great deals like 50 to 60% off coats you'll love and dazzling gemstone jewelry 30% off. Or take an extra 10% off small appliances from Crux, Black & Decker, and more. Plus, Star Rewards members earn on every purchase, except gift cards, services, and fees at Macy's. More at Macy's.com/Star Rewards. Savings off sale and clearance prices. Exclusions apply.
3 people you should be 100% certain about: your barber, your plumber, and your tax pro. Switch to Jackson Hewitt and you can be 100% certain about your taxes. We'll get you your maximum refund guaranteed and we'll back your return for life. Don't be kind of certain or almost certain. Be 100% certain. Switch to Jackson Hewitt today and get 50% off tax prep. Limited time offer for new clients filing at participating locations. Max value $200. Visit jacksonhewitt.com/50 for terms.
So let's say you're considering buying a new home in the current climate. We've all heard that demand is high, inventory is low. So how do you get a leg up on the rest of the buyers all making offers on the same house as you? Oh, that's a toughie. But the first place I'd suggest you start is with a call to my friend Shannon at Legendary Home Loans. Shannon will set you up with a complete pre-approval underwriting. This used to be an upgrade, but nowadays it's got to be standard. You want to get your offer on a new home pushed to the front of the line, you need a TBD full underwriting approval from Legendary Home Loans. You'll shorten or even remove your financing contingency, and the sellers will know that your offer is real and ready to go. It's tough out there these days, folks, so why not have the advantage of a proven winning team in your huddle? Get pre-approval underwriting from my friend Shannon with the one and only Legendary Home Loans. Call now, 844-FSU-LOAN, 844-FSU-LOAN, or just visit FSUHomeLoans.com. FSUHomeLoans.com.
Equal housing lender. NMLS number 2270146.
We understand how important it is to have transportation you can rely on. So no matter what the road ahead brings, we'll be there, offering you and your family the support that's made Farm Bureau Insurance a trusted name for over 70 years. You deserve more. You deserve a promise.
I'm Andy Cohen with Florida Farm Bureau Insurance. Please call me at 850-671-FARM.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
Broadcasting live from Florida's capital city, this is the Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness on Real Talk 93.3. Now, stop what you're doing and listen closely. It's time for the Jeff Cameron Show in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go. Let's have some fun covering some football. There's no off season. Not when you have expectations, damn it. We embrace the hell out of off season when we were terrible. Now it's time to really overanalyze every detail of this team and try to project exactly what they're going to be well in advance of the evidence. Although there is returning evidence, which is what I think is exciting and why everybody else is excited as well. Don't forget, we're also on the cusp of and about to start the combine. And Tom, you and I like to figure out a time where we're going to get together for the big draft watch party. Now we got combine results coming up. It's going to be great. And next year, there will be a lot of guys. I say a lot. There'll be some Florida State guys that we'll be paying very close attention to. It's weird to think about this year compared to next. You may have, of the group that takes the field next year for Florida State this upcoming season, 10 people drafted. It's not even crazy to think about.
No.
Easily get to 10.
That sounds likely.
Yeah. Well, whenever we're looking for the many indicators that expectations, including those that are lofty, are warranted, the best way to do that is project how many draft or how many players that are starting for you this upcoming year in any given season will be drafted. And a lot of times you can answer your own questions about what's reasonable and not reasonable. When you look at a team and you think they should win 11 games and they don't have a single player that's going to get drafted, well, that's probably unreasonable. If you think that a team is playoff bound or potentially playoff bound and you project 10, 11, 12 guys that might go to the league in any of the rounds. I'm not talking about first round, second round, any of the rounds. Yeah, maybe it's reasonable to think that if you have 11 of 22 starters that are going to be drafted, then yes.
That's why I think this year is critical. And reaching the ACC championship game at minimum is what needs to happen. This is why, to me personally, I know that we had a fun debate about it last week, but it's playoffs or bust. This is the stars are aligning with this roster. And I get it. You're not littering the first 50 picks with 6 Seminoles that are going to go off the board.
No,
it's not like that. But this is as robust as we've had in terms of pro prospects on one field at the same time at Florida State since probably we were playing Michigan in the Orange Bowl. And maybe even then, I don't know if we had as many guys that had pro futures back in 2016 as we might this particular season.
Well, it's a fun debate. Do you think it's 9 guys? Do you think it's 15 guys? Probably somewhere in between, and that's fine. But we're having a discussion involving a multitude of players that we think are going to get drafted and play in the National Football League. To what degree you think their careers will be elite, that is all debatable and fun. But we could not have that discussion a little over a year ago. Couldn't have it. Didn't exist. There was one guy. That guy right there. That's it. You had one. Jermaine Johnson walked in and you went, there he is. That's the one. That's all you had. And now you're talking about, I don't know, this guy. How about 2 from this position group? How about 3 from this position group? How about 4 from this position group? My goodness gracious. That is a very different talking point. And you do have, in many regards, the transfer portal to thank for that. I'll find further satisfaction when that's a little bit more balanced. But I think it has a chance to be now because you've so elevated your roster that you're winning 10 games and you're expecting to do that or better this year. Therefore, the high school kids begin to pay attention and they too say yes. I mean, we all understand how it works. You have to have these precursor moments in which the successes are building upon one another and then the yeses begin to follow. The interest alone from the 2024 kids, 2025 kids, we see that now at camps. We now hear how frequently they speak of Florida State as a possible destination when just over a year ago they were not. We were not eliciting interest from the better players in the recruiting world.
Well, one of the things to monitor, On3 is obsessed with this, and that's okay by me because it's the next wave of recruiting, at least. You could talk about the portal or high school, but NIL and the amounts of money that will be doled out for a roster in a given year. I've seen it, their first estimates were close between $8 to $10 million a year. They've dialed it back now, even for the power players, to be closer to half that.
Of course.
If that's the case, then I feel even better about our chances because we have our ducks in a row and we're efficient on that side of things. It'll be fun to monitor really. And when we make these, potential deals or we make our pitch to the next wave of high school players, I don't feel as worried that we're going to get outclassed financially. If that's the going rate, so to speak, for a big-time player is about half of what the estimates were not that long ago, then you combine that with a 10-win season in 2022 and then maybe a playoff run in 2023, yeah, man, we're going to be squarely positioned to have real recruiting success. Like, no longer qualifiers, real recruiting success, top 10 consensus class kind of success.
Yeah, and we should. I like that Alex Atkins said that when I asked him about, the transfer portal and the competition that we're going to be witnessing in the spring. And he said, well, that's the way it should be. We're in year 4 here. We should, this is the kind of competition you would expect to have. He's right. And I think that's also the correct answer when you're describing the kind of, I think, classes we should expect to be garnering based on who we are and the cachet of this name and also the success of last season and what we think will be this season. We should get a lot of yeses from big name kids. You got to be able to close and be in the conversation with a lot of the elite of the elite.
The other good thing is that whether it was a high school kid or a portal kid in December, if they happened by practice before they made their decision, they all universally remarked how much they loved the intensity in practice. And they also saw the consistency between the guy they see on the trail that visits their high school or they come see on an official visit and the dude who would coach them day to day. And that's a big thing about spring. We don't bring that up a lot, but spring practices fall typically in the afternoon so that Coach Norvell and the rest of the staff can welcome high schools from around the region up to Tallahassee to see what it's all about. It's not just about tying it in with junior days, and there'll be a junior day on Saturday the 11th, 2 Saturdays from now, and that's important. But it's about getting kids up here to see what practice looks like, because that's one of the carrots that we dangle that is very successful in having kids gravitate towards Florida State.
Didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday, speaking of this coaching staff and what we expect and consistency and what they have to do in recruiting and the elevation of a roster. Mike Norvell, as we all know, had already signed his extension, very public conversation we had about the amount of money. I first guessed that it would be, a number that would reflect him being the most well thought of coach in the state, and he is. Offensive coordinator Alex Atkins and each of the Seminoles' other assistant coaches received raises or extensions. That, according to documents released Tuesday to Warchant and other media outlets, all of whom requested public records. The highlights are raises and extensions, writes Ira Schafel. For Atkins and defensive coordinator Adam Fuller, Atkins will now be making $1.15 million in 2023, $1.25 million in 2024, $1.3 million in 2025. He was slated to make $850,000 of part of his most recent contract extension. Fuller's contract will go through 2024. He'll make $1.2 million this season, $1.3 million the following year. Special teams coordinator, defensive end coach John Papuchis will make $700,000 in 2023, $750,000 in 2024. He was previously making $550,000. An indicator of how old I am leads me to interrupt the salary listing for these coaches just to say this is staggering. I can remember when Steve Spurrier was paid $1 million a year and the coaching world was on its ear. People covering the sport thought, well, my God, we've crossed the line. They're going to pay a football coach $1 million a year. This is crazy. A special teams coach is making $750,000 for Florida State. Times have changed. The money is abundant.
And both big coordinators are now making over $1 million. Yeah. I am old enough to remember when Will Muschamp was given $1 million to be a coordinator.
And that was considered absurd.
And the coaching world was on its ear, and we thought we had crossed the line. There are many more lines to cross between now and 10 years from now.
I remember Mickey Andrews making $200,000. Mickey Andrews.
Ahead of his time, unfortunately.
$200,000 and maybe an extra year on the back end of that one. Usually it was year to year.
Yeah, that's the deal here is that Adam Fuller is making more than Alex Atkins, but he's under contract for 2 seasons, whereas Atkins is under contract for 3. So it depends on how you want to look at it, but they've locked up Atkins for longer. The AAV, average annual value, is higher for Fuller for the next 2 seasons.
Odell Hagen signed a 1-year deal through the 2023 season at $600,000, which is what he made last year. David Johnson, the running backs coach, will get $500,000. Good gig if you can get it. Linebackers coach Randy Shannon going to make $625,000, $25,000 raise. That deal ends in early 2024.
Yeah, the 3 guys that are year to year at present are Shannon, Higgins, and Thompson. Everybody else is at least extended for the 2024 football season.
Tony Tokar has got himself a handsome raise here. He goes from $300,000 to $400,000 this upcoming year. The old $100,000 raise would certainly sit right with you as you lay your head on the pillow. It goes to $450,000 in 2024. That too would sit right with you.
That's also something where a guy who bet on himself cashes in.
Yeah.
Because he didn't take other opportunities because he believed in Coach Norvell, believed in himself first and foremost, and it pays off. And then also that parlays into the discussion about the wide receiver coach, who I believe was on a one-year deal with no raise last year, and that now changes.
$500,000 this year for the aforementioned Ron Dugans, and $550,000 in 2024. He was making $450,000 prior to that. And finally, Patrick Surtain, the new one, going to make $400,000 for Florida State this season, $500,000 in 2024. He got a 2-year deal there. Chris Thompson, who I didn't mention, the tight ends coach, getting paid awfully well, $500,000. So we'll watch and we'll see, are they worth it? Because now it's about the wins and the losses solely.
The most important thing that comes out of that release is a greater indicator to the coaching community around the country
how committed Florida State is
and how stable of a position it can be for you too. If you are a fast up-and-coming or a fast riser, an up-and-coming coach, and you're looking for a landing spot, if Florida State comes calling, you now pick up not just for that iconic brand and the history, but they're showing in present day they will lock you up for multiple years and give you the stability you're looking for. It's harder to negative recruit against Florida State now about instability when you see things like this.
Well, there's nothing you can recruit against Florida State with instability. You can't reference it. It's no longer a talking point. There's zero to be said. All of that is easily refuted. These numbers are public. In addition to the extension to the head coach, no, there's no. The way you've got to attack Florida State changes now. A year ago, it was a pretty consistent way in which they tried to cut out the legs from under the coaches who were out recruiting. That duration. Why would you commit to a place where you don't even know if your head coach is going to be there in 2 years? You can't say it anymore. It has to be something else. And if Florida State keeps winning 10 games, it's awfully hard to recruit against them. That's the reason that success begets success. You got to have these seasons stacked upon one another. Another reason, not only because we have expectations, that a great season is necessary this year.
You've touched on it earlier with a different conversation, but the number one way to negative recruit Florida State at this point is high school development. Where is the track record at Florida State of developing high school players and turning them into NFL draft picks? Oh, they'll go to the portal, but are you considering them for the portal, young man? Or are you considering them for high school?
That is what you're going to say, right?
Yeah.
That's it. That's what
they'll
remains.
recruit right over you with the portal. That would be the way.
Oh, by the way, young man, so does everybody. Look at the world, man. Look where we're at. Even now, to a much lesser degree at some of these other firmly established elite level high school recruiting programs like Georgia and Alabama. But they do. I mean, Alabama's bringing in a running back from Georgia Tech last year. So they're like, hey, I mean, they'll do it if they see a need. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV. My man, Eddie.
Jeff, what's happening, dude?
Bears eating people all over the place. I read another article today. It's the third one in the last month of somebody getting mauled to death by a bear.
Man, bears have their own space. You got to let them have that.
You do. You got to stay clear of bears, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I got a question for you. Here you go. If you had to be mauled to death, eaten alive by any animal in the world, which would you choose to eat you alive?
Ooh, I think maybe I'd want, I don't know, longevity time, a mouse?
Just a slow burn.
Slow little burn.
This thing just finished the pinking. It's been a month.
I could go to work. I could still do my thing. I could probably live 30 years.
I thought you were going to say great white because it'd be quick, or a grizzly. We went with mouse.
Yeah, mouse.
Okay. Mouse it is.
Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Wooden Glass has been taking care of families since 1945.
Experienced, reliable professionals who offer only the best, like Widden's top-of-the-line bath enclosures. Eye-catching storefronts are a specialty at Wooden Glass, and they provide precise installation.
Wooden Glass, Tallahassee's first family in glass. Online at widdenglass.com. Call 850-222-5781.
Motorcycle accident? Call Basic Brooks Law Offices, 777-7777.
Let's be honest, we all have way too much stuff. Maybe your storage closet is full, your garage is full, or the guest bedroom is a mess. Call Southeast Portable Buildings, 580-6400, or visit them online at southeastportablebuildings.com.
The weather is unpredictable and can cause issues around your home. Weston Trawick provides commercial, residential, and industrial electrical wiring services, yearly inspections on fire alarms, portable generator sales, and so much more. With 24/7 emergency service and repair, Weston Trawick will be your calm in the storm. Give them a call at 514-0003. Weston Trawick, professional electrical services day or night. Visit online at westontrawick.com.
When you need a plumber quick, how long is an acceptable time to have to wait?
Yeah, hey, it's the Millers again. Just calling you about our little plumbing problem.
2 hours?
Hey, we were hoping you can get here soon because the water is getting really bad. I mean, please hurry.
4 hours?
I know you said you were on your way, but, honey, tell the kids to tread water.
8 hours?
Don't worry about us. We're fine.
At M&L Plumbing, you'll never have to wait long for quality, dependable service right when you need it. At M&L Plumbing, we listen to our customers, and our qualified technicians aim to achieve 100% customer satisfaction. So the next time you need plumbing work or repairs, think of the name M&L Plumbing, your local plumbing experts, commercial or residential. Give us a call, 850-575-9393, or visit us online at mndlplumbing.com. M&L Plumbing, for all of your plumbing needs.
We all want more energy, more strength, more results. Well, welcome to Orange Theory Fitness as you take a step towards feeling more alive today. Backed by science, Orange Theory's heart rate monitored workout is scientifically designed to keep heart rates in a target zone, spiking metabolism and increasing energy. Orange Theory Fitness is a one-of-a-kind group personal training workout resulting in more energy, visible toning, and extra calorie burn for up to 36 hours. Experience a more vibrant life today with Orange Theory Fitness. To find out more, go to orangetheoryfitness.com.
The Jeff Cameron Show, brought to you by Orange Theory Fitness. 2 Tallahassee locations, Midtown on Thomasville Road and Northside in the Village Common Shopping Center. Online at orangetheoryfitness.com.
Draft. I look forward to this time of year. You guys, if you've been a long time listener to the show, Tom and I love the draft. We love kind of having fun like everybody else does and playing the role of, fan GM for these teams. Who's sitting pretty, by the way, is the Chicago Bears, who are going to get offers for that pick because you've got 2 quarterbacks perhaps going in the top 3 picks. So how great is it if you're them? You can pretend like you're not so sure what you're doing at quarterback. So now they feel like they've got to offer you something to come up. So even if you're at 2 and you think the Bears could take Bryce Young number 1, let's say, and you got to give them something to move up 1 spot. So they thank you very much. Even though behind the scenes they have no intention of drafting a quarterback, they're not going to let you know that. And then if you're sitting at 3 and you want one of the quarterbacks, then you're like, well, maybe we should make a move. And the Bears are like, well, please, by all means, we'll hear that offer too. And we'll go from 2 to 3. All you've done is move from 1 to 3, and you've made 2 separate deals and created assets for yourself. I mean, I think that's what they should do. That's how they should do it. It would be a weird thing. You'd probably, you do have to go in and say to Justin Fields, like, hey, man, don't take it the wrong way. This is business. This is business. I know publicly it's going to look bad for you, but it's not what our intent is.
And I think that they've made that clear to a degree, without reaching out to him, just by courting the pick, you're saying we like our guy. And Justin Fields, from a fantasy football perspective, from about week 7 on last year, was a monster.
Yeah, he ran wild, but he also got hurt because he was running wild. And I don't know, man.
The question is, well, is he another Jalen Hurts? Because the precedent keeps changing. It's like, and that's what, if Chicago believes the answer is yes, we're better off by accruing 3 top 50 picks in the next couple of years.
They ought to absolutely do that.
Absolutely.
You would hold on to him and you would accrue those picks. I don't like, how I feel about this year's quarterback crop. Not a fan. There's nobody that I see that is obviously going to be better than Justin Fields. They didn't provide any help for Justin Fields either. He's just running around crazy.
The Lewin career forecaster is sad.
Yeah, very sad. Just like, this is a crop of bums. A lot of them.
Don't hit the power button. Thank you.
You don't want to hear from me. Yeah, no, it's awful. I don't like it. But yeah, they're in a really good position. I'm going to ask this out loud because I think we all know that if you can play football, it really doesn't matter. All the other stuff that people talk about, it's kind of like, well, will that hurt him? Will this hurt him? Can he play? Jalen Carter now, you saw this. This is a sad story, a very sad story. And it's one that the night that you heard about the car crash, the night that you heard about it, you knew how this was going to read because of the time and everything. And you thought, oh, I hate this story. I don't like this. These are young people making a terrible mistake and they're dead. They don't get to do it over. And it's awful. But here's the rest of that story. The Athens-Clarke County, Georgia Police Department has issued an arrest warrant for Jalen Carter, who's either one or two non-quarterback in this draft, right? And that was, the AP has obtained the arrest warrant, seen this. It alleges that he was the one racing. He was in a 2021 Jeep Trackhawk, racing the 2021 Ford Expedition driven by the recruiting staffer, 24-year-old Chandler LaCroix, which led to that wreck on January the 15th. And Carter was present at the scene of the crash, later providing kind of shifting accounts of what he saw with the wreck at the time. Now they allege the reason he was there is he was the one doing the racing with them. Devin Willock, who was the offensive lineman for the Bulldogs that was with LaCroix, they were both killed in what police initially reported was a single vehicle accident. I'll skip all the details here. 104 miles per hour around a turn. Good night, Irene. Her blood alcohol level was twice the legal limit. So we feared when we read the original story that that's exactly how this was going to read. And it has. Now he's charged because they allege he was racing. He is not going to go to the combine now, not going to do the press for the combine. Wasn't going to run for anybody, wasn't going to do a lot of the exercises anyhow, didn't need to. If we remove the human tragedy here, and I know that's impossible to do, but if we're solely talking about as it pertains to the player and what teams do, I'm here to tell you I don't think it will have a single impact on where he gets drafted.
No, from what I've seen, and this is just speaking to the player profile once again, not the humanity of the situation.
Routinely called a freak of nature.
And routinely, apparently, in quiet, behind-the-scenes circles, questioned for consistency of effort. Incredibly gifted, not the highest motor, not the most motivated. So if you combine that with a storyline such as this, then I think that may have an impact because you're talking about effort level and professionalism. That would have more of an impact than ability, though.
Yeah, he is the number one prospect in the draft in terms of player ratings. Anderson is the other. He's 2. You might say, well, wait a minute, the quarterbacks. No. Quarterbacks, it's based on team needs in the draft. So if a team needs a quarterback, even if he's rated well below what Carter is as a prospect, he could go number 1. But Carter's the number 1 prospect in the draft, and it's because of those freakish abilities when he does try. His body type, his athleticism, thickness, all of that. He's a freak. And I'm noting that today's storyline that accompanies the release of this story and the news of the warrants for his arrest, I've heard several people suggest perhaps this would cause him to slide on down the board. And we've just been around long enough to know that's simply not true. I don't think this singular incident, tragic as it is, would have an effect on his draft status. What you suggested would. That is, they do psychological profiles on these guys, and they have to take a look at, all right, was that a one-off? Did he just do something did he make a kind of mistake that young kids make all the time? Was that poor judgment? Was it an outlier as to who he is? If the answer is yes, if he doesn't have a series of missteps that are criminal in his past, and the interviews reveal that this is just probably a bad decision on a tough night that led tragically to the death of a teammate and a staffer, then they wouldn't hold that against him. If he's chronically crossing the line with issues, then yes, it would. I think, though, the psychological test that they're going to be looking at is to whether or not is he the kind of guy that once we give him the money is not going to work hard. If the answer is no to that, then he'll get drafted exactly where he would have gotten drafted. This incident, sad and tragic as it is, I don't believe has an impact on him. Unless you wanted to argue, I guess you could argue, if you're going back and forth about who the number one prospect is, does it move him to 2? Would he fall a spot as opposed to the kid from Alabama? I mean, maybe Anderson or him, maybe. But that's it. We've seen it too many times before. Guys have done way worse than race in a car.
Yeah, sure. No, again, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I guess the only thing I have to offer is if motor is an issue in his profile or the scouting reports, when you talk to coaches off the record or whatever, and they say doesn't show up every day, that would be more damaging, I think, than this particular case.
What's weird too is when you are elite, preternaturally gifted, the kind of athlete that are described as generationally awesome. Once every 10 years, we see a guy like this. When people get described that way, I'm not saying he is necessarily, but we've seen players, I talk about the draft a lot. In the last 20, 25 years, you get about a handful of guys that are described as freaks of nature. Just like we don't see people like this very often. Nobody should be 260 running 4.40s and 38-inch verticals and things like that. Every now and then that happens. When you're described as that, or you possess that freakish athleticism, I feel like it's fairly commonplace that what accompanies that is that he doesn't show up all the time. I think guys get bored. I think guys that are that gifted sometimes know they don't have to. They just don't have to try hard all the time. Their average is better than everybody else's great. And it becomes a habit because they've always been the best player on the field. Not all guys. Some guys are wired a little differently, but I do think it's fairly commonplace to hear about a guy who has such gifts that typically if there's a knock, it's like, he's not always giving it his all. Well, man, that probably since the time he was in 5th grade, he was faster than every kid in his class, could jump higher and do things better than everybody else, and he knew he didn't have to give it his all.
I hear you, and that's why, you'd probably go 5. And I'd take Anderson at 1. You know what I mean? Because if all things being equal, I need the professional. I need the professional so that I can reduce my risk. And that's what the draft is all about. And that'll be the interesting thing, especially as it pertains to Jamie Robinson, to see how far he goes up the board. Not down the board, but up the board, because the Senior Bowl was good for him. And then the reputation of being a hard worker also helps him out. It's a league of tryhards, as they say.
Yeah.
Everybody's a freak, but who's going to put in the effort to have that extra separator so that they can get the snaps? And I wonder where Jamie falls. He might actually be a day 2 guy. He might make it to day 2 this year.
Oh, I'm rooting for him. That'd be great. Really quickly, just to answer the question about what's going to happen and why it's different than, say, like Andy Reid's son's situation. Andy Reid's son was driving the car. Andy Reid's son was drunk driving and hit somebody and killed them. In this situation, it's not a good decision to drag race sober, drunk, you name it, drag racing, terrible idea, period, crime, yes. But there is a big difference between being in a drag race, pulling over as somebody else speeds around a corner and hits a telephone pole and dies, than if you're the one driving the car and your passenger dies. That's not the same thing.
Yeah, just legally speaking, here's your, nickel's worth of, reading up or watching Law and Order.
Yeah.
But it's one thing if you're driving the car. It's another thing if you're driving a car that hits another car.
Right.
For vehicular manslaughter at that point, as opposed to just racing somebody in another lane. I think that's very, very different legal set of circumstances.
Right. No, he's not going to jail. And there are plenty of people who are not elite football players who also would not go to jail for that. It's a tragedy. Booked and released or something, but that's about the extent of it. Yeah. It's not a good look. but I don't think it affects his draft status, to be honest with you. Jeff Cameron Show, 93.3 Real Talk Radio, Warchant TV.
Your local news now.
Human remains found in the St. Mark's National Wildlife Refuge earlier this month have been identified as a man that has been missing since September. The human remains were identified as the missing individual, Sean Reddish. WCSO investigators are currently investigating the cause and manner of Reddish's death. No evidence of foul play has been revealed. This is an active and ongoing investigation. A Leon High School student was arrested Tuesday morning after a handgun and marijuana was found in his vehicle on campus. The school resource deputy was patrolling the student parking lot when he observed an unoccupied vehicle with the engine running. 18-year-old Jaquavian Parks was identified as a driver and a student at the school. He was asked to return to the vehicle and shut off the engine. The smell of marijuana prompted a probable cause search. The SRD discovered more than 86 grams of marijuana, clear plastic bags, a small black scale, and a loaded Glock 33 handgun with a bullet in the chamber. Parks was arrested and transported to the Leon County Detention Facility. This is Rachel Lene with your Real Talk 93.3 Local News Update, brought to you by Macklemore Systems, Tallahassee's go-to Mac store. Check them out online at MacklemoreSystems.com.
This is meteorologist Paul Trombley with your Real Talk 93.3 weather update. Overcast this afternoon with highs around 83. Winds out of the southwest, 8 to 15 miles per hour. Overcast skies tonight, lows level off around 66. Highs around 82 tomorrow. Cloudy skies with a few peaks of sun. Upper 70s Friday and Saturday with a chance for scattered thunderstorms Friday. This report is brought to you by the Lawn Johns. For all your landscaping and lawn care needs, visit thelawnjohns.com. Right now, 82.
Hey, no fans, our partner ISF Inc. is a national management and IT consulting firm located right here in Tallahassee, Florida, solving the future for state governments through strategy, process, and technology. As a trusted advisor for state governments, ISF knows the importance of defining a clear and detailed strategy. Our friends at ISF can help your organization create a strategy that sets you on a path to success. ISF, your vision plus our expertise brings your brilliant ideas to life. Visit ISF.com to learn more. ISF, solving the future. My man, Eddie.
Jeff, what's happening, dude?
Bears eating people all over the place. I read another article today. It's the third one in the last month of somebody getting mauled to death by a bear.
Man, bears have their own space.
Well,
you got to let them have that.
You do. You got to stay clear of bears, is what you're saying?
Yes.
I got a question for you. Here you go. If you had to be mauled to death, eaten alive by any animal in the world, which would you choose to eat you alive?
Ooh, I think maybe I'd want, I don't know, longevity time, a mouse.
Just a slow burn.
Slow burn.
This thing just finished the pinky. It's been a month.
I could go to work. I could still do my thing. I could probably live 30 years.
I thought you were going to say great white because it'd be quick, or a grizzly. We went with mouse.
Yeah, mouse.
Okay. Mouse it is. Gordo's, bringing the flavor and flair of Cuban food to Tallahassee since 1996.
Welcome to Legendary Home Loans, a mortgage experience designed around speed, simplicity, and customer service. Before you buy your next home, contact our friend Shannon Young with Legendary Home Loans. Visit FSUHomeLoans.com. FSUHomeLoans.com.
As to whether or not it's going to be residing in this conference, let's say 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Actually, that's actually the more interesting question. We know, I think, what Florida State's intent is. I am kind of curious how quickly all this could be resolved. That's the stuff I'd love to be on a fly on the wall for, just to hear the kind of conversations. Does it help facilitate those conversations? What do Florida State's lawyers know about what's possible with the grant of rights? Peter Collins saying we have a handle on the grant of rights. What does that even mean?
That's a great question.
I don't even know what that means.
But that is the first time anybody in the conference has ever said something like that about the grant of rights. Usually it's, well, off the record, we're not so sure. Instead of on the record, oh, we got a good handle on the grant of rights. Very different things. And I guess it just comes down to, if you have to cut a check beyond the $120 million, what's the total number? All in, $500 million? 450 million, 600 million, whatever it is. What's the number for Florida State?
Boy, I would love to have a specific number to know that you're free and clear. Because again, I know that the number can be astronomical and it causes folks to recoil. But if you have a number, then you have a game plan. How do we get to it? What's the magic number? What's realistic? What if that number is $650 million to walk away scot-free, both from the ACC and the grant of rights, and you retain your television rights for whomever it is that picks you up, and then you're moving forward. You're moving on with your life. The divorce is amicable, and you've written the check to go your separate way. And somebody would say, well, what could we afford? Well, again, you'd be surprised because leveraged against future earnings, you could probably afford an awful lot, especially if you took out a loan, 30 years, paid it off.
Well, if you listen to the Board of Trustees meeting last Friday, and you watched the whole thing. I did make that crying Jordan thing, by the way.
That's great.
Yeah, it's on the channel right now. 120 million is nothing. That's what they're telling you.
That's no money.
That's no money at all.
Yeah. Well, that's the
so
ACC.
We could pay it off over 4 years. Yeah, I get it. But to them, you're just looking for benchmarks about what makes them blush. 120 million doesn't make them blush one bit. And that's where I think, again, this gets cheaper. Maybe like $1 million a week, it feels like. Maybe $50 million a year. No, I'm just seriously, like $50 million a year is what Texas and Oklahoma paid to get out of the Big 12 1 year early. So that breaks out to about $1 million a week that the price tag goes down as every week goes by. And that's why I think around 2026, 2027, at the very latest, we get to a palatable amount of money remaining and a settlement. And I think that's the worst case scenario at this point. That's the longest period of time that we will have to be in the ACC. We'll see if we can make it happen sooner.
I would love, because you get different answers. Somebody asked me that the other day of the people that I've talked to whose opinion I would value on the legal matters surrounding the grant of rights. You get there are a lot of caveats. You get an awful lot of, I think this is a way they could have tacked that. And then you're listening intently, nodding your head, going, oh, I like it. I like what I'm hearing so far. This would be somebody who has a knowledge of the law, let's say, and you're listening to them, and then they go, however, and as soon as you hear that, you're like, oh, here we go. Here's the other side of it. And they will always concede that there is a however. It hasn't been done. It hasn't been challenged. We don't know. There are a lot of unknowns involved in all of this. And that's what makes people less apt to gung-ho charge into some sort of legal proceeding.
You can't know as you go into a legal proceeding for most all legal proceedings. It depends on what
but precedent helps. When you have precedent, you can at least sit down with your client and say, in cases in the past in which this was the set of circumstances, we have this evidence to say this is how it's meted out. We don't have that with this.
No, but also whatever the initial ruling is, it can be appealed, and then it's just tied up.
Yeah, you're tied up in the courts forever.
You're tied up in the courts, and you're spending a ton of money. And I think what we're all trying to avoid here is a giant legal liability. Aren't we all in life in general trying to avoid a large legal liability in terms of money? From how much can you have ESPN do the work for you? I think that's part of the conversation that they're trying to have. If you're trying to go to the SEC and your rights are owned by ESPN anyway, can they just facilitate this deal and move it along quicker? If not, can we get the votes to just dissolve the conference and then we're free agents? I would think those are the easiest two ways to get from A to B with the least amount of money coming out of your pocket. The other thing I'd say is the precedent for the Big 12 exit is that you didn't have to cut the check when you got together to sign the paperwork for the divorce. You made an agreement that checks were coming.
Yeah. Future checks.
Future checks.
That's right.
Huge difference.
Yeah.
ACC alimony. That's what we're looking for.
We'll talk some about that tonight at 7 o'clock. Not necessarily ACC alimony, but the situation and what was intended from last Friday's meeting and comments made at the BOT meeting. That's fascinating. So it should be fun. 7 o'clock tonight, Warchant TV. I'll be hosting, and we'll have Ira and Gene Williams. As I mentioned before, David Hale, the gentleman that covers Clemson, whose name I continue to forget.
Matt Connolly.
There it is.
It just sounds like a good name from the Midwest, doesn't it?
It does. He'll join us as well. We'll get some perspective from Clemson. Could very well be that as we sit there there's just a whole bunch of Clemson people on the TV and a whole bunch of Florida State people were like, how are you, friend? Good to see you, friend. All right, let's go. By the way, we want to kick your ass this fall. Oh, that's great. We want to kick yours. But we all agree we should be leaving. Yes, we should. That's the locale. Let's go over here and do all that ass kicking. Let's get out of here while we're trying to kick each other's ass and go try to kick each other's ass elsewhere.
It's like when two golfers are shaking hands before they play a playoff.
Yeah.
They're like, all right, well, a lot of money here. You want to go halvesies?
This has been fun.
One guy gets the trophy.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's split the $3.5 million right down the middle. What do you say? Let's do it right here.
I actually found last week's Honda riveting there towards the end because of what was going on with the two people in play. One that had overcome, very high degree of alcoholism that cost him his career and much of his life for a long time that he fought back from, well documented, and now is back in the winner's circle. Good for Chris Kirk. And that Cole kid who's a 34-year-old rookie. I say kid. He's a 34-year-old man who's a rookie on tour, just trying to find status, just trying to make it. And here he has a chance to win in his rookie season.
It was a lot of fun to watch.
Well, they both played well is the thing, too. And they even overcame mistakes.
The problem is, and not to turn into no laying up over here, but NBC hasn't gotten the memo about fewer commercials.
Well, because that contract isn't over. They can't get out from under that for a while. It's when they go back to the table, they're going to have to do away with the playing through and all that other nonsense because you create less drama, not more drama. Every time I have to sit there and watch you talk about a freaking,
You got a guy who's got a shot if he makes eagle on 18, hitting his third shot while they're running a Lexus ad, and it's him playing through. And like, by the way, what a great shot as we come back. Fellas, folks, because you're going to be watching that channel until the Masters. They have every tournament up.
Yes, they do. Well, luckily the Masters not littered with the same sorts of ads.
That's correct.
that is
from our corporate partners and friends.
Yeah,
at Mercedes-Benz.
We do, fortunately, now enter into two elevated events. Although I do think the PGA, whether it was intended or not, has just found the recipe. That's what you want. You want these upstarts or great stories or guys that are desperate to try to, continue to make it on the PGA Tour that have never won anything. You want those guys battling it out in a less than stellar field, which creates drama for a tournament that is really bitten hardcore by the fact that they're sandwiched between elevated events. The Honda is in the past has been a great field, and it is an awesome track. It's just that they got screwed this year. Now that thing's going to rotate. Now
it will, but they changed some rules today. They've just ratified new rules that the elevated events will only carry between 70 and 78 players and not have cuts anymore. So it's going to serve like WGC events where you're going to play guaranteed 4 rounds. And that affects guys like Florida State grads that are trying to cut their teeth at the next level, like a Lebioda or Vincent Norman.
Well, and that's why if you get into the Honda and you get your opportunity, you better play well. There's a lot on the line.
Correct.
I said the last 5 years on the golf show, I would say to Trey and tell people all the time, if you don't watch qualifying, you don't watch the Korn Ferry stuff, you're missing out. You want drama? Watch a guy have to make a 10-foot putt to see whether or not he decides to stick with his dream of playing professional golf or call it a day and go work at the local muni. Watch that guy line up that putt. Life-altering putt. That's very different than a guy about to make a putt or not that makes $1.8 million or $450,000. Still a very, very intense moment, but very different. So it's
like watching a field goal kicker. 45 yards to keep your left arm. If you miss it, your left arm's gone. Good luck.
Speaking of which, that too will be a focal point of competition in the spring. Kicker. Good. We were desperate to see anybody else trot out there to try a kick. Ultimately, we all were rooting for Fitzy to get it together because you thought, well, we don't have another option.
Yeah, and he legitimately cost you a game. The math on the finish of the NC State football game is directly a result of not trusting in your kicker. So that was hurtful.
It was, yeah.
He got better as the season went on, and he's got a chance. He's the incumbent. He's got a chance.
I wonder if, it's interesting. I wonder if halfway through last year, the decision was made. At that point, we're just going to go out and get somebody. Because kicker is one of those things that don't get handled in the way that I think that it should. A lot of times the position doesn't get handled the way that it should, especially not in college. There aren't, you don't see guys over there working with kickers. They're just kind of left to their own devices over there. And so I've always thought, like, if you bring in a guy who is as well thought of as anybody in the country at the position, right? And he comes in and then he goes south for some reason, you're screwed. You're just done. That's why we've had quite literally stories of people having open tryouts with, walk-ons that played high school, soccer or something.
You're right. And they only get about 4 kicks that matter for an entire practice, at least here.
Yeah.
There's about 4 of them, and that's at most. Some days it's 2 or 3. So you don't have a whole lot of reps to, put them under the gun with. Now I want to see how these drills work. Maybe they expand them a little bit because you've got real competition. But that NC State game was not just about the finish and the throw to the back of the end zone that was picked off and it felt ill-advised. It was also early in the game. Remember the 4th down to Johnny, the quick little slant. You're going to kick a field goal in that situation. You're not going to go for it on a quick in on a 4th down. Dropped, should have been caught, should have been a touchdown. I digress. You make that call. The process is because you don't believe in the kicker. And you'd like to be able to get inside the 35-yard line and say, no big deal. If we stall, we put 3 on the board instead of, oh, man, it's 6 or nothing here.
It was funny because in the era of ultra aggressive play calling and, the idea that some of the analytics have revealed that coaches were for so long doing it wrong. You now see decisions, especially when you have the older football fans sitting around going, what is he doing? Why would they do that here? And the numbers bear out that you should. Your chances of winning the football game, if you go for it here, 4th and 1, tied 7-7 in the first quarter from the 36-yard line. We know all these numbers that they study now, right? Last year, Florida State fans had to engage not only in understanding the math in a more advanced and aggressive way that the modern coach abides by, but also they had to do their own set of special Florida State math, which was, okay, not only are we uber aggressive because that's the more modern approach to football because the numbers bear that out, we also have a kicker who sucks to high heaven and can't be trusted to make extra points, let alone field goals. So now what are we calling on 2nd and 8 from the 40? Because they're 40. Like, where are we at now? Because we're not playing for, let's just make sure we get some points here. No. This is 4-down territory, Bob. We're going to have to go for it here.
What was interesting is by the end of the year, he kicked through an injury in the Florida game and was able to hit a big one down the stretch. And he kind of solidified and righted the ship. But no job is promised. I just love that about spring and fall and improvement of a program in general. Don't care. Great job or horrible job for me last year. Here's your chance this year. It's all brand new, clean slate. As Alex Atkins told you last week, just give me 5 on the field. I don't care.
That was funny, too, by the way. Well, when you have 12 people competing for 5 starting positions, you can absolutely take the approach of just give me 5 on the field because the guys that are going to be most often on the field are the ones who are most desperate to win the spot. So anytime there's a spot that's open, that is a tragedy. Like if you're Atkins, you're looking over like, any of you bastards want to play?
Right. And if you've got true competition in any workplace, it's amazing how many more people volunteer when there's an opportunity. Hey, who wants to take this assignment? Ooh, I'll do it. But if you're the only guy, you're Ted, the 11-time reigning Employee of the Month champion. It's like, I'm
the
okay.
11-time Employee of the Month.
That's right.
How about a raise, guys?
Yeah.
11 times. Cue up the tub talk here. We've kind of been involved in it, but go ahead, if you would. Cue it up.
It's time for Tub Talk, brought to you by Pinch a Penny Pools and Spas. Buy yourself the hot tub you've always wanted at the price you've always wanted from Pinch a Penny on Greer Street. Now, it's live to the tub.
So as we relax in the tub, I've got to tell you, Tom, I went over to Pinch a Penny off of Greer Street and saw the unbelievable display room. I'm not kidding. I had never been there before. I had seen not a rendering.
Social media post?
Yeah, I mean, I had seen a picture taken from, the front of the store. It's not the same as when you go in there. When you go in there, you're like, well, good Lord, I've never known anything about whirlpools or spas, but now I'm interested. You've got me.
Grips.
You name it. I had no idea.
I just know that Pinch a Penny.
Yes, Mike Martin. When I walked in, I went, well, sweet Jesus, look at that one. That's like a house. I could live in that thing. There was one that had like 85 jets. Reasonably priced,
I
Tom.
believe that's a launcher. That's not
It was unbelievable. No,
reasonably priced.
Reasonably priced. I thought those things were like $50,000. Like the really luxurious ones that seat 9 or something like that. They're not. They're not.
Yeah. 4K TVs built in.
I wouldn't leave that thing if I had 4K TVs and 98 jets.
It matches where your eyes point. There's like some sort of a retinal scan. So if you turn your head, the TV follows you.
Oh, I was blown away. And I can be gluttonous for things that I decide that I want. So I really realized I'm the perfect customer for them because they got to be like, oh, he can't help himself. He's not settling on the 5-seater when he could have the 12-seater.
Doing enough talking about the tub. Let's go.
I know. I should get one. But that's how I am. Like when I'm sitting there, when you piece together, you put together the amenities you want in a car. Like, well, you could have this. What about this? What about that? Wait, I could have that too.
You'll be the world's weirdest hot tub owner because your neighbor will come out to take out the trash cans at 4 a.m. and they're gonna hear the jets getting in the morning soak. Richard,
I wouldn't have it where I had to talk to Richard.
You'd have it on the front lawn.
Good work out of you. Good work, Matthew. Be well, everybody. Have a good night. We'll talk to you later.